All right. Hey, Facebook Live. Hey, Talk Universe. Hope you are having a great Saturday morning. I am here with my friend Joanne Roxburgh. How are you, Joanne?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much.
Let's put the little name tag on her. There she is, right there. Joanne Roxburgh. We are broadcasting on Facebook Live. We've got a great discussion about virtual reality. You're going to love this because something Joanne doesn't know and something Talk Universe that you probably don't know is I used to teach some of these things in college, in graduate programs about 10 years ago when they were a little bit more, a little bit more science fiction-y and less easy than the normal Facebook technology. So I remember, Second Life and doing academic homework assignments in Second Life and talking about would we ever be able to do this sort of thing, and it's going to be a very fun discussion here. So, like anything else, Joanne's friends, fans, even family, you can help spread the impact of her message by wiggling your finger like the creepy kid from The Shining over the share button. Help us defeat the evil, wicked Facebook algorithm that doesn't really prioritize videos anymore because everybody and the grandmother is doing videos, but not everybody is doing talks that make a big impact. Not everybody's been on the TED stage yet. And if you haven't yet, you got to get accepted. So wiggle your finger and help Joanne spread the impact of her talk. So any questions, Joanne? Or
All good.
we're all good. And let's see here. Looks like we got some viewers already. It's a good time to be doing this on Saturday morning for sure. And I'm going to look here. It's called Virtually Present Attending Classes in Social Virtual Reality is the title. I got your LinkedIn. I've got your bio. I've got everything. So we are going to go live in 3, 2. We are live with Joanne Roxburgh. Joanne, are you ready to talk?
I am ready to talk. Thank you.
Joanne Roxburgh is an educational consultant who has worked with universities, governments, and multinationals around the world, helping them to maximize the benefits of online learning. In her spare time, Joanne is studying towards a PhD in technology-enhanced learning. Joanne Roxburgh, welcome to the talk.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Your talk is called Virtually Present Attending Classes in Social Virtual Reality. You come out on stage, if I'm remembering correctly, in a goggle and wearing the virtual reality. You're talking about the pros and some of the drawbacks of being so engaged and immersed in virtual reality. My favorite piece, little spoiler alert, when you talked about how you were drinking coffee in real life and you had a virtual reality shelf and it was so real to you that you had a little spill as a result. I love it. Joanne, please take us behind the talk.
Yeah, I have to say that didn't just happen once, sadly. Okay, so this talk came out of, it was a really happy coming together of a course that I was taking, which was in social virtual reality, and working for a company that was thinking of offering courses in social virtual reality, and a homework assignment that I had to do for my PhD. So I got to do all of those three things and a TED talk out of it, and it was just fantastic the way those different elements all came together.
Well, you're a master of multitasking. Then that's the first I've heard that a homework assignment and a project and then you could get a TED talk out of the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean that's the dream, right? So it started off as a 6,000 word essay. It was very academic. It was very serious. It had lots of references in, and I wanted to bring that a little bit more to other people because what I'd experienced and what I'd done the research on was fascinating. But there are only so many people that are going to read an academic essay with 6,000 words. So that's why I wanted to bring it out to the TED audience there.
Yeah, well, I mean, why not broaden the impact and why not make it more accessible? The rest of us, we're not always into even former academics like me. I adjunct for several years, And white papers and peer-reviewed journals are really important. They absolutely have their place, especially in this era of fake news. But what I love is interviewing other subject matter experts who walked outside of kind of the ivory tower, and they made their learning much more accessible so that other people could participate and share and spread it as well.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah.
Joanne, you mentioned, some of the pros and some of the cons, and it seems like the same coin, because it's become so immersive and virtual reality is so real. We're not doing Second Life, watching our computer screen and having real life around us, but we've got the goggles and we're actually almost there. And on the negative side, we haven't figured out how to kind of cure the slight nausea that you get, the motion sickness. I mean, we're really there. On the other hand, and I love this as a instructional designer, I mean, it's so immersive. You've got people's attention all over the world. They're watching on you. The pressure is on in the same way that it might be on for a real, TED Talk or a public speaking. And so whether you're learning new skills as a communicator, or as you mentioned, whether you are learning a new language and interacting outside of your own culture in preparation for a trip or something like that, the learning is heightened because you've got that focus and that attention. And I thought it was just great that it's really the same issue. It's so real right now that you've got to warn, and watch out, and maybe take a tablet or something to warn against the motion sickness. What are your thoughts on that?
To pick you up on the motion sickness, I think that is getting engineered away, because it used to be super, super expensive to have a headset that had enough degrees of freedom that you wouldn't get, or you'd be less likely to get the motion sickness. And that for most people was just not going to be affordable. So the fact that we now have headsets which are affordable and which are getting more of these degrees of freedom means that motion sickness is going down. There's also research that the longer you spend in virtual reality, the less likely you are to experience that. So these things are getting better. We're also getting headsets which aren't tethered to, see, I did that, anything with wires. Yeah,
I'm tethered for sure. I hate this thing.
Exactly. So as soon as you're able to be a little bit more independent from the wires and the cables, that makes life a lot easier as well. So I think that maybe 5 years from now, people are going to look back on my talk and go, wait, what's she talking about? You can put the headphones on the wrong way round, and then people sound as if they're coming from the opposite direction to where you see their avatar. What on earth is she talking about? So
that sounds like it might be an easy fix once they figure that piece out.
They are building them into the headsets, of course. Of course they are.
Yeah. Well, and as a parallel, this is, I'm not endorsing violent video games, but I remember in college, and this was 20 years ago, that first shoot 'em up game Doom came out, and you would get, and it was very boxy and blocky, and by today's standards, even 10 years ago standards, very ancient, but it was the first one where you could go around and you could kind of, like laser tag, defeat your friend in the next dorm room and shoot them, and just like in laser tag, but it was like I tried to play that a couple times. I get sick after about 15 minutes because it was so low tech and so few degrees of freedom. But today, it's a lot more immersive. Probably a horrible analogy in terms of there's always people that are sensitive for good reason about the violence of that, but it's the parallel I can think about.
Yeah, no, that reminded me of an experience. My son plays video games. And so we were outside walking up a hill in real life, and there was some rubbish on the floor, or garbage in your terms. And he looked at it and said, "This is really spoiling my immersion." And I thought, wow, sometimes real life, we can spoil that immersion.
Yeah, real life will spoil the immersion for sure. That's a way of doing that. Is that where we are right now? That real life is spoiling the immersion of younger people. There's something beautiful about that, because we've created a world where younger people can actually create something that is more beautiful, more pure, hopefully more helpful and altruistic. So I think that's I'm not ripping that statement. I'm intrigued, and I think that there's a real upside to that.
Yeah.
Just take them out more often, please. I must say that.
Yeah,
Take
and I
them
think
for a walk.
yeah, look, real life. But I think as well, talking about that immersion, there's also the fact that we can now stand in other people's shoes. And there are situations in real life which are unpleasant, which are violent, and which we often aren't exposed to and we can't relate to. And we can, through virtual reality, experience those things and really feel some of the hard lives that some people are living, and being immersed in that, just not stepping in their shoes but stepping in their eyes, then that is something where people can have a really strong reaction and start to see things from different perspectives. But at the same time, that can be very upsetting and it can be quite traumatic, and there is a risk to us. If we step into dangerous situations, we expose ourselves to a risk of PTSD in a very, very safe environment, but our brains don't know that.
Yeah.
And the more immersive, the more present we feel, the less our brains understand that it's not true.
Yeah. Well, as a learning designer, I mean, that isn't that great? Where do you want to learn how to defuse a bomb? Do you want to do it with a real bomb in a real, with the media there and CNN and everybody else? Is that where you want to have your first real trained day in the real world on the job? Or do you want to do it in a virtual reality where you're going to get a little bit traumatized, and same thing, flying a plane, same thing, with maybe diversity or sensitivity training where, you're a privileged person and then you're not privileged anymore when you put on the virtual reality. There are all kinds of wonderful applications, and at the same time, it's good to be in the real world, and it's good to be grounded and walk around in the dirt with your bare feet and do some of that and ruin the immersion of real life by having to take a shower.
Yeah, exactly. But you're very right on that, and I come from a similar perspective in terms of the instructional design aspect. Because my interest isn't so much in the tech of virtual reality, but of that feeling of presence that we can build up. And the reality is, when it comes to learning, that we can't all have that luxury of taking a year off, a couple of years off, going to a university, going and attending classes. That just isn't our reality. That more and more of us are having to reskill, upskill, and retrain. And we need to be able to do that alongside work responsibilities, family lives, social lives, keeping up to date on the latest episodes that are being released on Netflix. Really key things that we've got to integrate with our learning as well. So online, we can say, oh, it's not as good, or we can make it as good, if not better. And that was where I was interested particularly in this, not just virtual reality, but the social virtual reality. So it's not just presence, but it's presence together.
I just wonder, I mean, the whole brick and mortar university concept, I mean, it's always going to have a degree of relevance. And as these other technologies and massive, online courses and free courses and all of these things get more and more and more prevalent, it's less of a requirement. And so there's going to be more kind of autodidacts out there, people that can teach themselves, or people that are we call them self-motivated learners, who can go out and get the tools that they need without feeling like they have to do the prescribed course. And I'm on a little bit of a kick with this because I saw 2 days ago, I had an invitation and went out and I saw Big Ted's #1 speaker, Sir Ken Robinson.
Oh, wonderful. Oh,
I saw him 2 days ago, and he was talking about a lot of these things. So, I'm definitely on a kick about all of this stuff. Well, we've been enjoying this conversation with Joanne Roxburgh. Her talk is called Virtually Present, Attending Classes in Social Virtual Reality. We're going to pivot right over to UTalk Universe in just a moment for the Blitz Round. And we're back with the Blitz Round with Joanne Roxburgh. I'm about to ask Joanne a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of her talk. Are you ready, Joanne?
I'm ready. Go.
First question, were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I applied.
How did you get accepted?
Well, this was at Lancaster University, TEDx, and that's where I'm doing my PhD as well. So I saw the connection, and rather than just handing my essay in, I handed my essay in and I applied to TEDx.
Nice.
And I got accepted. They invited me along.
Excellent. So in terms of preparing, were you a memorizer, improviser, or a blender?
Blender, definitely. I memorized the first little part because I didn't want to suffer from stage fright and just stand there. And so I memorized that bit, and then I had notes for the rest of it. But something else I did was I go to Toastmasters. So I had already delivered the speech a couple of times and had it critiqued thoroughly, shall we say.
What are your thoughts on, is there a little bit of a difference in your mind between the Toastmaster style versus the TED style, or not so much in your mind?
Not so much in my mind, actually. I think the difference is that when you're at Toastmasters, you know everybody, they're rooting for you, they're going to give you feedback. And I think that that is a little bit different. You really, really know your audience. And with TEDx, then you can get a little bit of an insight into your audience, but it's not as easy to tailor it to what they're going to be looking for.
Joanne, what's a tip, tool, or technique that helped you?
I think the practicing. I think the practicing in front of people. I practiced in front of a mirror, and my mirror said I was awesome. But to actually practice in front of live people, I practiced in front of my kids, and they didn't pull any punches in terms of feedback. And also with Toastmasters. So I think that practice was key, really.
Yeah, this is the cut for time question. What was the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out?
I think it was all really, really painful to cut things out, actually, because it was, as I said, 6,000 words. And I had to really focus on what I thought people would be interested in. So I think as an academic, it was the theory behind it, all of the research behind it. It's not just I'm saying this. I want to tell you the backstory and where it came from. And yeah, maybe that was the hardest part.
Well, and maybe that's fodder for your book. Or something, because 6,000 words, 6,000 words, that's 2 or 3 or 4 chapters of a book.
Very true, very true. And when I get to the dissertation thesis stage, there's a whole load more words.
Well, we've been enjoying the Blitz Round with Joanne Roxburgh. Her talk, again, is called Virtually Present, Attending Classes in Social Virtual Reality. If you want to watch that, you can type that into YouTube, or you can go to our show notes page at bethetalk.com. We will have a link right there where you can check that out, and you can link in with Joanne. We'll have a link to her LinkedIn profile in the show notes as well. And we'll be back with Joanne Roxburgh in just one moment for the final word of advice. And we're back with Joanne Roxburgh. It's time for the final word of advice.
For me, it's knowing where you're speaking. When I went out there, the lights were up and I couldn't see the audience. And I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to be talking to people. I was talking to black and white lights. And that was a super difficult thing to do. I was not ready for it at all. So my advice is make sure you know if you're going to see people or you're going to stare out into blackness.
Well, Joanne Roxburgh, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, that's a wrap.
Okie dokie.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Well, again, go ahead and let's share the impact of Joanne's talk. I had another guest, and I saw him in the lobby, but he has disappeared, which is not a good thing. Oh, come back, second guest, before I shut down this link. It's a good thing. Anyway, Joanne, What are your thoughts? What's next for you?
What's next for me is continuing with the education. What I'm really getting into is something that you were just picking up on, and that's this whole lifelong learning and taking alternative paths. And I was speaking to a group in London recently, and they are C-level and C-1. And they were really challenging me as an educator in terms of universities not providing them with the students they need to fill their positions. So they were complaining about the skills gaps. And I was complaining that, well, you keep asking for degrees and this qualification and that qualification. So, yeah, a little bit antagonistic there between us. We both see the cause of the problem in the other. And I think we've got to work together a lot more and work out what people need, what companies need, and how education can really fit in with that, and how we can make it so that it's motivating and engaging for people who've got busy lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and where are you? Where do you want to go with this this PhD that you're pursuing? Do you want to go into academia? Do you want to go into corporate? What piece of this is do you think that you're going to be really focusing on?
I started the PhD because it was interesting, and I wanted to have a sort of a structure to rummaging around and finding out about things, which is possibly contradicting what I've just said about universities having that real structure, and there should be different ways of learning and the autodidacts that you mentioned earlier. But I'm working as a consultant at the moment, and there are lots of people that can produce great online content, but there's still a mismatch between that and getting the motivation and the engagement piece right. And I think there's a lot more we can do around that. So working with companies to support their employees in terms of studying, making it easier for them. They want people that have got qualifications that or have got different skills that they didn't have previously. So how can they work together with the employees, with the online education provider? So pulling it together a little bit more. It's here to stay, and we need to get a way that learning's fun, learning's motivating, and it fits in with the rest of your life. So I'm working with companies to help them around that piece a lot of the time.
Awesome. Well, good. Well, hey, I am very happy to see Joe in the green room here. So we're going to add him to our little broadcast here on Facebook Live. How you doing, Joe?
Doing good this morning, Nathan. How are you?
I'm good. I was looking for you. These links are sensitive things, because unlike Zoom, once I end the broadcast, the link is gone. Then I have to get another link, and then I have to send it out all over again. So I'm glad to see you pop in. I saw you pop in earlier. I'm like, where'd Joe go?
My ADD kicked in and I wandered away.
Oh, well, we can all understand that, can't we, Joanne? We just talked about virtual reality goggles and ruining our immersive experience by getting our shoe a little dirty by walking outside. So here's what I'm going to do, Joe. I'm looking for your bio. We don't have your talk up yet because that just happened last month, and so I need a bio. I'm going to look on your LinkedIn and scrape that because I think the 50-word limit was too short. So I'm gonna find a bio for you. And Joanne, congratulations, you're our newest talk alumni. So what you get to do, I'm going to drop out to the green room, and you get to give Joe advice on how to deal with me.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
There you go.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good, doing wonderful. How about you?
I am doing good, yeah.
Where are you located, Joanne?
London.
Okay, all right. I didn't know.
What about you?
I am in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Great.
Just got through a little bit of a snowstorm, so.
Oh, wow. Gosh, we're just rain and dismal and dark and
Yeah,
but snow makes it worthwhile.
Good.
That's great. So what was your talk on, Joe?
My talk was on a book that I wrote called Getting to Us. Discover the ability to lead your team to any result you desire. How to create a vision that was so big everybody would be drawn into a common cause, so they would want to achieve and they would do what you want them to do.
Oh, wow. Wow, interesting.
Look.
Yeah. Oh, and I can see a poster behind you as well.
Even though I dropped out of the green room, I was listening to you live on Facebook, so it was excellent.
Oh, were you? Oh.
Yeah, I dropped out of the green room because I just got tired of sitting here, so I kept it playing in the background. So great job.
Oh, that's good. That's why I did that little signal appeal. So Joe heard me.
No, I did. That's why I ran back down.
Yeah, no, I that's why I said it, because in case you were watching, I wanted you to jump in here. All right, so we're gonna get moving here. Joanne, thank you, and feel free to stick around, or if you need to prepare for sundowning in the UK, which happens, and you have like maybe 1 or 2 precious hours of daylight left at this time of year. So we're gonna say
weather.
yeah. So, and what I'm going to do is I always have to interview. I've got this weird thing. I have to interview from the left. So I'm going to walk all 3 of us back to the green room, and then we're going to put Joe in first so that he's on the right. I'm going to get on the left, and then we're going to get going.
Well, should I just drop out then?
No, I'll hit the button here. So I'm going to, there you go. See, I did it. All right, there we go. Now we've done the little switcheroo here. All right, Joe, this is what I found. You tell me if this will work or not. Joe Curcillo is a speaker, author, and consultant. He's the owner. He's the founder of the Mind Shark. Wait a minute.
Yep. This
is interesting. It pasted a whole bunch of stuff from your LinkedIn of the Mind Shark. I'm from Boston, Mind Shock. No, I'm not. Inspired by years of teaching, trial, advocacy, and entertaining audience as a thought reader. It says thought reader, not thought leader. Joe has dedicated his life to improving the communication skills of his corporate and business clients as a thought leader and author. Is that correct? Thought reader?
That is correct.
That is correct.
I'm a professional stage mind reader. I walk on stage and read people's minds. That's part of it.
Yeah. Well, and I saw the whole show right there, just because I had to, because this is the wonderful Harrisburg event where I got the invitation to MC it a whopping 2 days before, right when I came back from my vacation to Bar Harbor, Maine. And so I thought, oh my gosh, what is this? And then I asked my Get Accepted group. I said, hey, should I do this or not? And they said, do it. So I reached back to Chris. I said, I'm in. So good thing. And from one closer to another, great job.
Well, thank you. I saw yours on recorded. I never saw it live, but nice job as well. It was fun to close that event. It was a lot.
Yeah. Well, we'll hold that thought, because we're gonna get jumping on the podcasty thing. I just had to validate the bio before we go on record. TheMindShark.com. The mobilizing power of a unified vision is your talk, and then we'll get through the bio here. Any questions for me?
No, we'll just wing it. I'm good.
We'll just wing it. Excellent. All right. Well, we are live in 3, 2. We are live with Joe Curcillo. Joe, are you ready to talk?
I am ready to talk. Good morning.
Joe Curcillo is a speaker, author, and consultant. He's the founder of The Mind Shark, and he is the Mind Shark. Inspired by years of teaching, trial advocacy, and entertaining audiences as a thought reader, Joe Curcillo has dedicated his life to improving the communication skills of his corporate and business clients as a thought leader and author. Joe Curcillo, welcome to the talk.
Good to be here, Nate.
Your talk is called The Mobilizing Power of a Unified Vision. I got to be in the room for that, and I love that you had like a crystal ball. You talked about the crystal ball, but then you talked about being able to read the audience and have some real practical tools to do that. So, Joe, please take us behind the talk.
Sure. The talk is actually born from a book that I wrote. And the book is called Getting to Us, Discover the Ability to Lead Your Team to Any Result You Desire. I wrote the book and decided that Chapter 2 would make a great TED Talk. So I applied for the TED Talk in Harrisburg. And by the way, you mentioned the crystal ball. It's never far from me.
I love it. I think you had either you actually had a smoke machine, or we tried to have a smoke machine for you and just kind of enhance the ambiance of the crystal ball. But and the talk is so recent that it's not live yet on the YouTube channel, so I couldn't prep and review like I normally do. But I remember that the main thrust of your talk, it wasn't so much on the crystal ball. That was more of a foil. It was more about being present and mindful and really in the moment. So please just kind of remind me and everybody else about some of the takeaways from that talk, Joe.
Sure. Let me start with the fact that the purpose of the crystal ball was to make a point. And as a mind reader on stage, I obviously play with the mind and use the crystal ball as a prop. But here's the relationship of the crystal ball, in my mind, is companies spend millions of dollars to bring in consultants to tell them what they should already know. And my issue is that if you take your staff, your team, your people, whoever it is you're leading, and you treat them like human beings, give them a cause they can believe in, give them something that they can be a part of and give them a sense of nobility, they're going to do what you want them to do. And the crystal ball came in basically as my prop to say, if you really want to spend money, go hire a psychic reader. Or just treat everybody like humans. And that's where the ball came in. So
I love that. And I'm remembering that whole piece now. It's funny because it's just like in our own lives. It's like when we decide on our own that we really want something and we really want to spend money on something, it's really hard not to talk ourselves out of that. And we go on and we a lot of times waste the money and not be paying attention. So there must be a lot of background, and there must be a lot of reason why you're bringing that up, not just in the book, but in your talk. Can you give us, without embarrassing anyone or putting yourself too much out there, can you kind of water down a couple of case study examples of maybe things that you saw that were really wasteful and unnecessary?
Well, I was going to say I'm the king of that. I have a room of things I don't need. So that's not embarrassing. I'm a hoarder. The problem is we're all motivated by something that makes us feel good. In fact, this morning, when I woke up, I went on Facebook, and the first thing I get are notices that 5 or 6 people that I know have birthdays and they had fundraisers. And people are giving to them, because people will try to make a difference. And the concept of an individual fundraiser on your birthday didn't even exist a couple years ago. But all of a sudden, people decide this is my cause, and people are sending them money. But it's also sending money to people they wouldn't normally give a gift to. But they're motivated by that need or that desire to fulfill a cause, to be a part of something, and they spend the money. Unfortunately, my wife likes to tease me because I don't play the guitar well, but every time I see a really cool looking guitar, it ends up on my wall hanging, because it makes me feel good. And those guitars around me make me happy. So yeah, we all are looking for something that we can invest our time and energy in to say, this makes me feel good.
Well, and I can't help but think a news story broke again, not too far away across the river from Philadelphia, of that wonderful, heartwarming story. It was a GoFundMe, and there were a couple on the side. There was a homeless guy, and a couple stopped, and they helped them, and they raised like $400,000 for that homeless person and transformed his life. And then I think about 6 months ago, something came out where the guy didn't get the money. The homeless guy didn't get the money. And then I think yesterday or the day before, a story broke that the whole thing was a sham and a scam. And now there's like criminal charges and there's all kinds of stuff like that. So obviously we love that Americans and Canadians and people all over the world are so generous, wanting to help people out. We really do want to help people out. But where do you think is the line between, this new almost, I'm going to call it a fad, which isn't the right word because that's a little too disrespectful, but nobody was motivated enough. Very few people were so motivated. And I've interviewed one or two of these people on Be the Talk that actually, before it became so easy that you could click a couple of buttons to fundraise on your birthday, I interviewed an individual on Be the Talk that actually did this years ago when it really required a lot of energy. Where's the line between where we really pay attention, when it's really remarkable, and versus when it's just almost in danger of looking like it's a fad because it's so easy to set up, Joe?
Well, it's funny you say. Let me tell you, last weekend I performed in Havana, Cuba. And after the shows, we were up at a bar on a rooftop. And a friend of mine is standing next to me and looks down at a little kid in a window. And you could see that this was a place where there was one light on. We're talking about Cuba, a lot of poverty. And he looked at me and said, I would love to be able to give that family money. I don't know if it'll make a difference. And my question was, what would they do with it? Because the society that they live in, what's the difference between, and let's start with, the average person in Cuba is making like $30 a month. You give them $500, they wouldn't know what to do. So where's the line? The line is asking yourself, what is this person going to do with that money? Mm-hmm. What is this person going to do with your charity? Because sometimes they need to be led and guided. And that's where I think there's a lot of need, is to determine what is good and what is bad. I also know of a GoFundMe page that raised a lot of money for someone. And unfortunately, it all went into fun and games. Didn't spend 1 ounce of it on something good.
Tragic.
And everybody raised money for him, but it's just annoying.
Tragic.
That's a personal thing. I know the person personally, and I know what they did with it, and it drives me crazy.
Well, and this reminds me of, we talk about this on the show a lot, especially with nonprofits and humanitarians. It's this idea. It's not so different at this point in the conversation of the hopefully well-meaning stereotype of the American, humanitarian that's going to rescue the world, go drop into some developing country and throw a bunch of money and build a bunch of buildings before actually talking to the people that they're trying to serve, allow them to buy in, allow them to co-lead and really serve and have a sense of ownership and a sense of transferring of responsibility. But instead, we kind of have this messianic complex, go in there, throw a bunch of money, and we create people who are psychologically and financially dependent. And it's actually leaves them worse than when we start. What are your thoughts on that? I'm just drawing a pretty big continuum parallel, a couple of steps down the chain.
No, I understand that. And I think that the cause that we're all looking for is to help someone. So we've got to determine what they need. And money doesn't always answer it. And I'll tell you, it sounds, odd, but I mean, so in Cuba at the very end, our waitress for breakfast started talking to my wife and I. And it was clear that this woman had very little money. And she thanked me for the couple tips I gave her. But then all of a sudden the discussion changed. And what we learned was that she didn't need money. What she needed were clothes. So my wife and I ended up leaving her. And actually, I'm a very big guy. And she told me her father was grande. So we left her a bunch of clothes because it was a matter of, here, take them. We don't need them. We flew home. I actually made space for rum and cigars, so it was okay. But the point is, we gave her the clothes because that's what she needed. It wasn't just raising money or giving them money. It was finding the specific need of the individual. And with her, we were able to do that. And
so Talk Universe, two things: intentionality and taking time to be present and to really care. That's what I hear right there. Powerful. You
have to be in that moment, and you have to understand that culture. If you're going to help people, you've got to understand who you're helping. I mean, I will help people. I will not give money to someone on the street, but I'll bring them a hamburger if they tell me they're hungry. I try to fit the need. I don't want to waste it.
It's funny because I would do the same thing. People would ask me for money for a bus pass or money for a hamburger or money for this or money for that. And I said, well, let's just walk over to the, Whole Foods over here, or walk over to the McDonald's. And it was interesting because much of the time, and Joe wants to help people. I really want to help people, but I found it to be not just a litmus test, but it became a way of staying empowered and me not feeling like a victim and being able to truly help those that wanted the help. If they came with me a couple of blocks and walk out of their way and say no to the opportunity cost for them of who else they would meet, then I got to buy someone a meal and have a conversation. It was a great thing. If not, I knew that there was a little bit of a different piece of the story. And I just needed to retain, if I'm being asked for, for money or for time or focus or to take time out of my day, I just found that to be probably the most respectful, honoring way that I could respond to people by actually offering to do for them what they said that they wanted from me. So, and I want to help people.
If we can take this back to what I call the leadership model, the bottom line is financial incentives, financial reward is not always the answer. It's absolutely not what people always need. You've got to figure out what they need. And if you find that out, they will do what you want them to do. So for me, if I give someone clothes, at least I know they're wearing them or someone's wearing them. But if I give them money, I have no idea what they're doing it. So I actually feel better knowing that it's going to a good use.
Well, we've been enjoying this conversation with Joe Curcillo. His talk is called The Mobilizing Power of a Unified Vision, and we're going to find out more about UTalk Universe and your future talk in the Blitz Round, and we'll be right back. And we're back with Joe Curcillo. It is time for the Blitz Round. I'm going to ask Joe a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of his recent talk. Joe, are you ready?
I'm a lawyer. Either or doesn't work for me.
Well, we're gonna keep it moving here. So, Joe, were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I applied.
What advice do you have for other people to get accepted?
I think that the best thing you can do is take a look at the topic that specific TED is about. That TEDx is going to have an overlying umbrella of what it wants to be about. And your talk has to fit into that model. If it doesn't, you're not going to be looked at.
Yeah,
so
well,
pay attention to the big picture.
Absolutely. And it's so easy. It's like applying for a grant. If you aren't very, very, very specific about doing every little thing, you're not going to even be looked at. But if you just tweak your talk to include, a couple of code words, and in a meaningful way, then you get consideration. It's powerful stuff. So, Joe, as a legal expert, as a lawyer, are you a memorizer? Are you an improviser? Or are you a blender?
I am probably a blender.
And did you use that for your talk?
Yes. I mean, obviously, my talk came from my book. So I did write it out in depth and thoroughly. But when I stand on stage, I know the book, I know the talk, and I tend to make it fit the mood of the crowd so that I can stay in rhythm.
Now, I know the answer to this. I normally ask people, were you an opener, were you a closer, or in between? And obviously you were a closer because I was in the room. And from one closer to another, what advice do you have for closers?
I think if you're a closer, you want to make sure you pay attention to every talk that precedes you. I sat through every one, made some great friends, heard a lot of great messages, and kudos to everybody that was out there with me. But also, too, that temperature of the room is what you have to follow. So you can't just walk out and ignore everything that happened before you. As a closer, your message doesn't change, but your energy has to absorb the energy of everyone that went before you so that audience leaves knowing that they got value.
Now, this is going to be a fun question just for your perspective. And again, I was in the room, but I don't know what your inner world looked like or outer world. So what was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened before or during your talk?
Well, actually, the strange thing was right before my talk, backstage, I was wired up and ready to go. And they came back. And there was a minor delay before I went on because they realized my microphone was cutting out. So I had to stand behind the curtain and get undressed again, rewired, and go back out. And I'm standing there watching, going, now there's dead time. But it was kind of shocking. Like, I'm ready to go. And all of a sudden it was, whoa, pull that horse back into the gate. Let's fix this microphone.
I love it because I was actually emceeing that day in that particular event. I don't remember that happening. So it was one perspective to another.
It was handled well from the audience perspective. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But from mine, it was just like that moment where you hear the bell go and you're ready to run out of the gate. And that's why, by the way, I always travel with my own microphone. But that day I didn't use mine.
Well, and that's the thing. Any public communicator, whether they're a trial lawyer or a public speaker or a CEO or an executive or whatever, when you're on and you value your audience, time stands still when you know you should be addressing and engaging people, and they've got those microseconds of attention and focus, and you can't be out there.
When they used my microphone, I'm sure it only took about 12 to 15 seconds. In my mind, it was an hour and a half. It just felt like forever. So it was
because once we give you the attention, and then we take it back, or we figure we tune out, or we shut down, it's really hard to get it back. And you did that. You did that. And it wasn't because of the crystal ball. It was because of your engagement and the way that you practice your craft, Joe. So congratulations.
Thank you. Audiences energize me.
Well, absolutely. And we've been enjoying this Blitz Round with Joe Curcillo. His talk is called The Mobilizing Power of a Unified Vision. You can watch that talk on YouTube when it comes out. We will also have it on our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com. It was still so recently. It was still not even maybe a month ago, not even a full month. Well, it was about a full month ago at this point. Yeah. And we'll have a link to that, and we will also have a link to themindshark.com, where you can connect with Joe on his website. And we'll be back with Joe Curcillo in just a moment for the final word of advice. And we're back with Joe Curcillo. It is time for the final word of advice.
My final word of advice is take a look at the people you're dealing with. Take a moment, listen to them. Don't talk until you've heard them, because people will tell you what they need. If you're waiting to speak, you are not listening. Listen, focus, pay attention. When people tell you what they need, then it's time for you to move. It's time for you to get something done.
Great advice. And be on the lookout for, I'll cut that part out, Lester. I was going to say, cut this part out, but I was going to say, be on the lookout for episode 300, because that is so appropriate, but we're already into the 3 teens at this point. So it's a little bit of a moot point. I'm basically changing and upgrading the format to be listening to people more. So I wanted to find a slick way of doing that. Cut that part all out, Lester. Joe Curcillo, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
It was a pleasure to be here, and thank you for allowing me, and thank you for everything you're doing. It's great stuff.
All right, that's a wrap. Man, I was trying to be all smooth and bring that. I guess I could have said, hey, go back to episode 300, but in my mind, it still doesn't drop for another 10 days. So
okay.
I can't. I have cognitive dissonance going on, because you've got the present time, the recording time, the drop date, and where are we? And then the English participle tense of speech. So I couldn't quite pull all of those dynamics out. Man, we got some real social media love. Our friend and fellow speaker, Beth, Butterfly Beth. Oh my gosh, amazing. And then this was when we were talking about the fraud with the GoFundMe. Hope says, just a sour apple in a bunch. I think most of the time the money makes it to the cause. Both of us want to hope so. We both want to believe so. And Carolyn, awesome. Thumbs up right here. Beth again. Hey, there's two guys I look up to. Well, we're both looking up to you, Beth.
You do,
Come
Beth.
on. Yeah. And then Hope, a few, are those clapping hands?
Morning, Hope.
Yeah. Hey, and this was from earlier. Carolyn asked, what does your wiggle your finger mean? That means defeat the algorithm on Facebook, take your finger and wiggle it over the share button to help Joe spread his message without needing Facebook ads and whatnot. That's basically what it means. And I make a little wisecrack about the creepy kid from The Shining who wiggled his finger a lot, which is very disturbing, of course. All right. And then this is earlier. Hey, Carolyn, thank you so much. So good to see you in your element, Nathan. I saw the author of The Element, Sir Ken Robinson, 2 days ago, which was cool. Most viewed TED Talk of all time. Powerful week. A lot of stuff going on. And we actually still have a moment or two for any questions that you have. So feel free to type them in. Otherwise, feel free to go to BeTheTalk.com. We are about, and just so that Joe knows this, as well as Joanne, we're about 4 weeks out from these dropping. However, you can, that's why we broadcast, so that you can share these right now. And I also try to upload them to YouTube. I upload them and share them on LinkedIn as well. And for some people professionally, that looks even better as LinkedIn videos. Okay, Carolyn, she is still on. What is the name of Joe's book again? Oh, there it is.
There it is. There you
Getting
go.
to Us, and it's available on Amazon and where books are sold.
Yes.
I would imagine. Getting to Us, Joe Curcillo. Let's see here. And then Carolyn, hey, thank you. LOL, I get it now. Yeah, it's cheesy. I do it every time. Carolyn. I'm kind of sick of it, and probably most people are sick of me saying it, but it's like, when I have people and we're able to live tag them when the talk in the broadcast is live, which I actually did because Joe friended me earlier, so I was able to go in during his interview. As he was answering one of my questions, I was actually live tagging his Facebook, which helps more people see this. And that's powerful. And you can always share this. You can always ask questions after the live segment is over as well. And it's excellent. Yeah, indeed.
I'm addictive. I respond to messages very quickly. So
excellent. Well, good. Well, hey, thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. And I'm going to go ahead and repurpose all of these things. Joe, thanks for joining us. Any final word to everybody before we go offline?
No, just everybody have a wonderful day and keep moving forward and be successful. It's awesome. Got you all later.